Yo, is this working? Yes, it is. This is The Civil Fleet, a podcast focused on activist-led refugee rescue and support missions across Fortress Europe, with me, Ben Coles. We are back after a bit of a hiatus. I said in the last episode that I was about to have a child and my son has been born. It is wonderful being a parent, but I am tired all the time. I never have time to do anything. Somehow managed to work and look after our son together with my partner and just have no time for anything. But this podcast is not about the minor problems in my life. This episode that you're listening to today, we're going to be speaking with Julia Winkler from Sea-Watch, and she's going to tell us about an attack that happened on the Sea-Watch 5 by the so-called Libyan Coastguards in May. She's going to tell us how the ship came under attack by these so-called coastguards, and how after the attack, once they made it back to land, the captain of the Sea-Watch 5 is being put under investigation by the Italian authorities. Absolutely crazy situation. We're also going to talk a little bit about the legal actions that Sea-Watch has taken to try to make the German government act. And we're also going to talk about the Sea-Watch's new ship, which is called the Aurora 2. Since making this episode, which was as of about a week ago, I think, the Sea-Watch has rescued a bunch of people in the central Mediterranean and then was forced to take them all the way up to northern Italy. It's a situation we see all the time. Okay, so before we get into today's episode, I'd like to remind you that the Civil Fleet is not just a podcast, it is also a news blog with news stories, investigative reports, and those kind of things. So go to civilfleet.com. That's it. Go to civilfleet.com and you'll find the website and you'll find all that stuff there. Also, if you like what the Civil Fleet is doing, then you can support us by putting your money where your mouth is. You can help us to cover the costs of platforming these amazing people that we have had on this podcast. To do that, you can go to ko-fi.com/civilfleet. That's ko-fi.com/civilfleet. And you can make a small donation like the price of a coffee, or you can donate, the price of a Ferrari if you like. Whatever you want. And anything that you give us will help us to keep the lights on, will help us to keep the podcast going, and help us to keep interviewing these awesome people. All right, that is enough for me, I think. Let's get on with the show. Okay, Julia Winkler, thank you very, very much for coming on the Civil Fleet podcast.
Yeah, I'm also very happy to be here.
We met before a long time ago, a couple of years ago in Trapani in Sicily to do with the Juventa case. But we're not talking about Juventa today, we're talking about Sea-Watch. And we're going to talk about the attack by the Libyan Coastguard in May and what's happened since then to Sea-Watch and to the Sea-Watch 5 and everything. But before we get into that, Julia, I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about you, how you ended up in your role, or what your role is as well for Sea-Watch. I'd like people listening to know a little bit about who they're hearing from.
Yes, I will gladly do so. Yeah, so my name is Julia and I'm the spokesperson and media strategist for Sea-Watch. And I've been involved in sea rescue and also border justice and the movement for freedom of movement for many years. You already mentioned we met back in Trapani for the Juventa case, so I've been part of the campaign around the criminalization and the trial against the crew members back then. I'm also part of different collectives like Decriminalize or the Captain Support Network that are fighting for people on the move that are being criminalized for steering the boats under so-called smuggling charges. So yes, I'm here and there and generally with the purpose and aim to fight for the right to freedom of movement for everyone.
Yeah, Captain, what was it called? The Captain Justice? I forgot the name you just said.
The Captain Support Network.
That's it. I've been wanting to get someone on from there for a while as well, actually, on the podcast. Maybe we can try and set that up later. That's a crazy campaign. We've had people on the podcast before who were accused of sentenced hundreds of years.
I saw the comrades from Athens, right? Yeah, with Decriminalize, we work a lot with Mustafa and Barbara and Luis. I saw you did an episode with them. Super nice.
Yeah, that was a while. Yeah, I think I can't remember when that was. A while ago, before my son was born, so I don't remember anything before then anymore. Yeah, so yeah, and I think everyone listening to this podcast is going to know about Sea-Watch, but maybe you could just fill us in. Anyway, maybe this is someone's first episode of the Civil Fleet. You could fill us in on what Sea-Watch is and how it operates.
Yeah, so Sea-Watch is a civil sea rescue organization. We operate currently 3 ships, one big one, it's the Sea-Watch 5, and 2 smaller ones, the Aurora 1 and the Aurora 2. Like, the good thing about the Sea-Watch is it can host many, many people, but it is a bit slower than the 2 Auroras, which are small and fast boats. And we also have airplanes that are monitoring what's happening at the Central Mediterranean Sea, that are documenting. And so we do sea rescue. We have been doing sea rescue for more than 10 years. And also we do try to fight for change on the political level, that at some point, hopefully, our work will not be needed anymore.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's something I say in this podcast all the time is it's amazing that you guys are doing what you're doing, but you shouldn't be there, right? There should be no need for this.
Exactly. I mean, like, the duty to rescue, also to do a rescue program at the Mediterranean Sea should be actually like state responsibility. It should be organized, it should be coordinated, and should be funded by the European states. But as we all know, unfortunately, that has not been happening also for more than 10 years. And yeah, for more than 10 years, like, civil society actors are stepping in and filling this void.
And so Sea-Watch, you've done hundreds of missions. I don't know how many you've done, but we're going to talk about one that happened in May this year, a couple, 2 months ago. I think it was like around May 11th and 12th. And you came under attack from the Libyan Coastguard. But can you kind of tell us what happened before the Libyan Coastguards arrived?
Yeah, so our ship, the Sea-Watch 5, and the crew on board, they spotted a boat in distress with around 90 people on board, who they rescued. But really shortly after the rescue, we were approached by a ship, by a little speedboat, and the people on board identified themselves as the so-called Libyan Coastguard, and ordered us many times to go back to Libya with them, that they have orders. They said, from the quote-unquote ministry, we have recordings of that they want us to come back to Libya, that we have been somehow breaching their laws whatsoever, not going in much into details. And however, when our captain and our head of mission refused, obviously, they also started shooting at us, and they started to threatening us to board the vessel and to basically abduct us if we don't follow their orders. And this situation continued for a long period, and they kept following the ship for the duration of several hours. So it was really quite a tense and frightening situation for the crew members, but also obviously for the rescued people on board, because most of them had just fled Libya, and most likely the very same people and forces that threatened us at this day in May. Mm-hmm.
And they were on a speedboat, were they? Not on one of their bigger ships? I think have been provided by Italy, or some of them have, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the boat itself that where the people were on board that shot at us, with this boat we cannot 100% follow it up where its origins are, but then a little bit later also another boat joined the scene, which also followed us, and this boat can be clearly traced back to one of those boats having been donated by Italy some years ago to the so-called Libyan Coastguard to provide them with vessels, which I think makes it again very clear that without European support they would not even have the boats and the equipment to do what they do, and really makes the European complicity in this very, very obvious.
Yeah, and I wonder if you could just explain as well, why do you refer to them as the so-called Libyan Coast Guard? I think it's pretty obvious, but maybe you can just explain that.
Yeah, I mean, there are 2 layers to it. I mean, first is the very basic sense of what a Coast Guard should do and is required to do for it to be legally accepted and acknowledged as a Coast Guard, which is, for example, being reachable 24/7, which is one of the aspects that the so-called Libyan Coast Guard definitely doesn't fulfill. And I mean, the second one is the much more important one, is that what they do is not rescuing people from distress, but what they do is abducting and illegally taking back people to the place that they fled from. So Libya is not considered to be a safe place, and then also bringing back people to the place where they fled from is in contradiction to international law. And on top of that, I mean, what we've seen so much in the past years is the immense and crazy violence that, the people on board the so-called Libyan Coast Guard, or like militias or whatever you want to refer them to them, are applying to the people on the move. So when you say, quote unquote, they rescue, I mean, they do not in any way are careful with the people on board. They're doing very, very dangerous maneuvers. They've shot at people on boats in the water. There have been incidents in the past where they shot people in the head. And I mean, the attacks and the violence against civil sea rescue ships, I mean, they've also increased in the past months. But I mean, obviously, they just one small part of violence that has been taken out on people on the move very systematically and structurally, and in a really another level of intensity for many, many years in the past. So, I mean, this is something that you cannot refer to as in any way a Coast Guard, but they are violent actors, violating the rights and the physical integrity of people systematically and repeatedly.
Yeah, and obviously Coast Guards don't shoot people in distress, right? Or shoot at rescuers. It's a crazy situation. I'm just going to say we have an episode with Frey Lindsay from State Watch about a bit of a real deep dive into the Libyan Coast Guard and how they're made up. So people should check that out. And yeah, this shooting incident in May is not the first time they've shot at. Well, not the first time they've shot at Sea-Watch, right? And not the first time they've shot at other civilian rescue vessels, right?
Yeah, exactly. So for us, it's already the second time. They already shot at us last year in September. I mean, for us, considering the circumstances, we have been quite quote unquote lucky, because our ship was not hit, and luckily, no one of the people on board was hurt. But still, I mean, obviously, it's a really crazy escalation of violence to start fire at us at open sea. But I mean, if you take, for example, a case of the Ocean Viking also last year, and you can find they have video material on this on their socials and also on YouTube, where they actually really open fire at the ship and glass is breaking. You see the holes that are at the height of people's heads. So it is really disturbing to see. And this incident really shows the potential of escalation and violence that basically is there every single time you encounter one of their ships.
Yeah, we did an episode with Patrick from the Ocean Viking about that shooting. It's a really crazy situation. And so, yeah, I think I was just looking this morning at the Justice Fleet website, where I think documented on there is all the attacks the Libyan Coast Guard has done on the different civil rescue ships throughout the years, right?
Exactly. There we try to collect and document all the cases to really have it visible that these types of attacks and this violence is not a single incident, or it might be just a certain militia that is kind of doing their own thing, but that this has been really happening for many, many years and systematically. And also to stress again that the violence against the ships is really concerning. But I mean, the most violence and happening on a daily basis is against people on the move, because that's also their mandate, given by the European Union to try to prevent people from arriving to the EU. So like all the boats that are being intercepted by the Libyan Coastguard, the people on board like suffer from a lot of violence inflicted upon them by them, and also these kind of incidents, at least the ones we know of that, like for example, also our airplanes document. We also try to collect all of them on the Justice Fleet page, where you can read more about them and also see really the crazy number and repeatedness of these attacks.
Yeah, I'll put a link into the Justice Fleet website so people can check out. I'm just scrolling through there. There's so many. I'd forgotten how frequent the Libyan Coast Guard do these crazy maneuvers or attacks and things. It's awful. And also, like, they're not doing it just to the European people, right? They're doing it to the people that are like, I think recently one of your planes, the Seabird 1 or 2, I can't remember which one, unfortunately, had pictures of people jumping and swimming away from the Libyan Coast Guard, right, during a rescue, in adverted commas, which I think was in Malta's waters. And I'll have a link to this, but I can't remember exactly when this was. But it was like last month, I think. But yeah, it's so obvious why you call them the so-called Libyan Coast Guards, right?
Yeah, exactly. And this is like the scene you just described is unfortunately a scene that we can observe quite regularly, that people, rather than being like taken again by these forces, are jumping into the water, are risking drowning, which also shows again that like what they fled from in Libya is so grave, is so serious, that they really are so frightened of going back there that they rather jump into the water and risk their lives there, which I think makes it quite clear.
And so if we go back to what happened in May, were you in international waters when the Libyans arrived, or like which rescue zone were you in at the time? Was the Sea-Watch 5 in?
Yeah, we were in international waters when they came and attacked us. We were like approximately 50, 60 nautical miles north of Tripoli in international waters. This is where the rescue happened. And also then the following attack,
And so you got... So, yeah, obviously they shouldn't be shooting at you. And it's in there... was that in the Libyan... I suppose it's the so-called Libyan Search and Rescue Zone as well?
Exactly. It was in the so-called Libyan Search and Rescue Zone, but in international waters.
And the ship started heading north away from the shots. Yeah, did you say that they fired? Did they fire into the water? Did any of none of the bullets hit the ship, or obviously didn't hit any of the crew?
I mean, like when the attack began, they first shot a single shot, and then like it was followed by a burst of like approximately 10 to 15 further shots without any warning. And our crew members at that time, they did not know what was happening. It was not clear if anyone got hit, if the ship got hit. It was only after that we could realize no one was hurt, and then also only later after we arrived and disembarked in Brindisi in Italy, that we could also make a first assessment at the ship. And it also for now it looks like there was no damage done, so it looks like it was so-called warning shots into the water. But I mean, we also don't know if they did aim at the ship but missed, or it's not clear to us. It's just the situation that we were in is what that fire was opened against the ship. And I think it also one of our crew members afterwards that gave an interview to a newspaper, he described quite impressively that he's Ukrainian, and he had just obviously also experienced and endured some really violent situations in Ukraine, and that once the shooting started, he said it was for him really crazy to be really being thrown back into that situation, be reminded of the war zone. And we can only imagine how this must also have felt for the people we rescued, who have been coming from a traumatic situation before.
Yeah, and I mean, it must have been awful for your Ukrainian crew member, and also the people, right? It must have been PTSD. I can't imagine. I don't know. I just can't picture how I'd react in that situation. Because you wouldn't know, like you were saying, like when there's bullets firing, you wouldn't know if they're coming at the ship or not. It doesn't matter, does it? You just be in a state of panic.
Yeah, exactly. At least in the very moment, obviously, afterwards we're all very relieved that, no one was hurt. But yeah, at this moment, you don't know what's happening, and also you don't know how the situation will further develop, especially since they, continue to follow us for quite a while.
Yeah, so you started sailing north, I take it, away. And how long did they follow? How long did the so-called Libyan coastguards follow you for?
I cannot tell you now like exact hours, but I do remember it was at least like for 2-3 that, they kind of like reduced a bit their distance a bit, fell back, then they followed closer. But the Sea-Watch 5 was like heading north on a slow speed, also to try to de-escalate, try to not escalate the situation further, and they kept following for like 2-3 hours at least. I remember it was.
Do you know did they follow you into like Malta's search and rescue zone, or like did they go that far?
I don't think it was that far, but also like I don't remember now in detail, but like I don't think at some point they stopped and went back.
Yeah, even if it's not if they did go into Malta search, it's not the first time they've done that. I think there's cases of them intercepting people in Malta's search and rescue zone while Malta does nothing, right? And so what I just could not believe in, and I think I saw this after my son was born. So then, like my recollection of what happens between then and now is a bit hazy. But your captain was then, they weren't detained, right? They were just investigated when they got back to Italy. Can you tell us about that? That is just unbelievable to me.
Yeah, it's like we started also this episode talking about back then when we met in Trapani for the Juventa case, a case where like a civil sea rescue crew has been investigated for many, many years for their search and rescue efforts in the Mediterranean Sea. And we haven't seen investigations like this for about 6 years now. So the opening of a new investigation. But indeed, what happened after we arrived in Italy, after the whole shooting incident, this mission in May, we finally arrived in Italy and everyone was happy that everyone made it safely. No one got hurt. But what happened then, shocked all of us that, police came on board, they searched the ship, they took people for interrogation to the police station, and then they announced to us that they have opened criminal investigations against our captain, Anne van Dam, the captain of this mission, for aiding, abetting, and authorized immigration. The old playbook that we know that they've been playing for many, many, many years and times. However, as I already mentioned, we already know this from the past, but it is interesting because they haven't done it for 6 years. So we're really concerned about this. At the same time, we know it's a kind of like a routine playbook that they play, as I already mentioned, and they have put up these accusations many, many times in the past. They never made it to court, or if they made it to court, like in the Juventa case, they didn't make it to main trial because they always fell apart, because it was always obvious latest inside the courtroom that none of these accusations can hold up. But of course, at the same time, what we've also seen, for example, in the Juventa case, the whole investigation, the whole pre-trial phase took 7 years. So even if authorities come up with wrong accusations, with the whole procedure, the whole time of investigations, of pre-trial detention, etc., they can still, of course, put a lot of pressure on an organization like ours, but especially, of course, on the individuals like our captain right now, who is the one that investigations are going on against. So it feels a bit like being thrown back to our times back then, unfortunately.
And is it still like just the investigation stage? They haven't charged him with anything, I take it.
Exactly, yes. And right now also we're waiting, because as long as there is the investigation going on, we also don't know yet the details, like what exactly, apart from the official charges, the official accusations, what they're exactly trying to argue or like wanting to bring up against him. So right now, like, that's the only thing we know, and we have to wait, and the investigations could finish, I don't know, in a few months, but it could also take years.
Yeah, hopefully that doesn't happen. Like the event, like you said, I think the event case went on for 7 years or something, right? Went on for a very long time.
Exactly. First, like the investigations phase, then finally the press charges against the 4 crew members, and then the pre-trial phase took also years. So, like, fingers crossed, and we really hope that this will not happen this time.
Yeah, and the Italian state must be spending so much money on these cases. Like, what is the point?
Exactly. I mean, like, this is also, I think, what really became very clear in the Juventa case. I mean, all the effort and all the resources they put into this case, I think, like, it was, someone did a calculation at some point, which was like more than $1 million they spent on it. And I think, like, it also should also really wake up all Italian citizens to see what the government prioritizes and decides to spend money on, that could instead be spent on a lot of things that are much more useful than this.
Yeah, I think it seemed, well, I don't actually know this, but I imagine that it's cheaper to treat people humanely than to be cruel. But I don't know. I imagine that's the case. That's crazy, and I hope that case gets dropped. And the investigation just ends and nothing happens to your captain. So let's move forward to now. So you're, I think just yesterday or a few days ago, maybe it was earlier this week, that the Sea-Watch 5 has gone back to sea, and you put out a press release yesterday, as of this recording, about a challenge that you've put to the German government to make sure they protect the Sea-Watch 5. Could you just explain that for us?
Yes, so yesterday, we put out this press release, as you mentioned, because we filed a so-called urgent application or an urgent appeal, asking the courts in Berlin to put in place interim measures. Because what we look at right now is that, I mean, Germany is the flag state of the Sea-Watch 5. So the Sea-Watch 5 is sailing under a German flag. And from a legal perspective, Germany is legally required to put in place sufficient measures to also ensure the safety and the integrity, also the property of the Sea-Watch 5, of the crew members on board. And what we've seen until now is that they have literally done nothing. Even more, they are ghosting us. So we have reached out to them many, many times, and last time is also in June that we again sent a letter to them asking them to take protective measures, since we were planning to head out for our next mission. Also requesting immediate response, and also highlighting the urgency. But they just decided to not respond at all. And so basically what we're doing now is to force them to react, and to force them to react in time, because they have these constitutional duties of protection under German law, and they have to do at least something. I mean, what they could do could, of course, take different shapes and different forms. I mean, what we are demanding is that the government has to use its available legal, diplomatic, and EU tools and avenues to really actively make an effort to protect German flag rescue vessels. And I mean, for example, also right now, the chair of the Frontex Management Board is from Germany. So this is also a way of putting some influence, for example, to put some pressure that Frontex stops sharing information and also locations of distress cases with the so-called Libyan Coastguard, for example. That would be a first very effective step. But of course, in general, we also are pressing for the German government to also push for at least a suspension of the EU cooperation with the so-called Libyan Coastguard, and also the funding that's taking place. I mean, you just have to, we always make the example, you just have to imagine, I don't know, a German flagged state would be shot at the North Sea, north of Germany, by some, I don't know, sort of, a Russian boat, for example, that, Germany is quite eager to, put any diplomatic pressure on that's available to them. However, in this case, they simply pretend like nothing happened. They do not react. They do not answer to us. And I mean, it's not just a diplomatic failure. It's also a legal failure. And with this urgent appeal that we filed, we're trying to now take the legal pathway, because that's the only one we see available right now, because, they also stopped talking to us completely.
Yeah, I can't believe they're ghosting you. It's really bad. And like you said, I think if this happened in like the Baltic Sea or something, if a Russian ship had shot at a German flag thing, it'd probably be World War III. It'd be really scary. How quickly, like, I can't think of a better way to describe this question. And what do you expect to happen with this legal challenge? Like, is this going to force them to do something? And if they do, like, what could they do to protect you?
I mean, from a legal perspective, if the court, we also have to wait for that, but if the court accepts the fact that this has to be treated as an urgent matter, which is also part of like this whole, we're not just like officially complained or started for legal procedures in general, but we like this urgent appeal means that we are also arguing that this has to be like take place now. So we're actually expecting the court to react this week on that. And if they also follow our argumentation that this is an urgent matter, since our ship is already out at sea again, then the Foreign Office to which this appeal is addressed, like they have to react. They have to get back to the court, and they have to argue either why they don't think it's an urgent matter, and if they are also losing on that, they have to provide also the court with a concept of theirs, what kind of measures they are taking. And I mean, like, what is probably realistic that they, at least take use of their diplomatic avenues towards Libya. But I mean, this is actually, it's going to be quite interesting, pathway, quite interesting development to see how exactly they argue what they can or what they cannot do, and also what is the legal perspective on the court. But I mean, that's a bit the thing of like that these effective measurements, basically, that they are not exactly defined, and so this will a bit like of also of a legal argument between us and them, what we deem needed and what they deem useful. However, what is not like possible is that they just simply do nothing and just like ignore all of their also constitutional duties, basically. And even like if we talk about that, we're not even talking about the fact that they are also politically responsible for this dangerous situation to be there in the first place, right? I mean, there's on the one hand is this duty of protection for any German vessel flag, for any Germany flagged vessel, but at the same time, I mean, also we are talking about all the role Germany is also playing at the European level. That is, the main reason why the situation is there in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, I think it's a good thing to do, right? Hopefully you're using the state apparatus to force it to do something. Yeah, hopefully it kicks them into gear and makes them do something. I can't believe they like just ignore you. I mean, I can, I can believe it. Like when it the global slumbered flotilla that was trying to reach Gaza with humanitarian aid. There was lots of I know there were British flagships in the first mission, and then the UK government didn't do. I don't even think they put out a statement or anything. I could be wrong, but yeah, they were very quiet about that.
Yeah, I mean, you can always see which situations they decide to react and which they don't, right? So it's quite obvious. But what I also wanted to add is also with this legal action, or I think also what is important to stress, it's not that we're now starting to get active basically because now it's our ship and it's our crew. And we haven't done anything in that regard beforehand while it was affecting people on the move so much. I think what's important to stress here is that the fact that it is the Sea-Watch 5 that got attacked now, and also with German crew members on board, that this gives us this legal tool that we can use to force the German government into action, into reaction, and to do something. And unfortunately, this legal pathway is not available to us when it comes to people on the move being attacked at sea. So right now we're using basically the situation that also our ship was attacked to also try out and make use of this legal pathway and see what we can do in order to force pressure the German government to react on this, then also of course in general reassessing and stopping this cooperation, which obviously mostly affects people on the move.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a sad fact in reality, I suppose, that you need if European people start getting hurt or getting put in danger, then European governments will take note. If it's people from Africa or Asia, they're probably not going to do anything. It's pretty bleak. But I hope that works, and the German government is forced to do something.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure when this episode will come out, but who knows? By the time, there will probably already be news out on this in terms of how the court reacted, how the German government reacted, because as I said, it's an urgent appeal, urgent application. So there is by definition, there needs to be quick response.
Yeah, so I'll try if that happens before I publish this episode. I'll squeeze that in the introduction or something, and make sure that we cover that. And let's move on. Unless there was anything else you wanted to talk about this case about the Libyan Coastguard shooting at you then that happened in May. And was there anything else, or shall we move on to something about the Aurora 2?
I think maybe what a little aspect that is also interesting that followed the shooting of the Sea-Watch 5 in May is that, luckily there was quite a bit of press coverage and attention on that, and so it happened that during a press conference by the European Commission the day later, a few journalists actually did ask questions and inquired about the fact what the European Commission is planning to do and whether they are now continuing or actually going to the step that they will question and analyze their cooperation and their funding of these forces. And I think what happened then was also quite revealing and also disturbing, because their answer was that they are not planning to do that, quite the opposite, because they basically said, we don't know how much further violence this cooperation might have prevented, which I think is quite a grotesque distortion of reality. If you are funding and legitimizing and supporting certain actors that are repeatedly and systematically exercising a lot of violence, and then you say, well, we don't know how much more violence they would maybe do. So I think we're doing a great job here. I think that was like for this whole story another interesting step in development, and all of that also showing how they argue this in front of themselves and in front of the public, which I guess we all know this is a really crazy portrayal of the current situation.
Yeah, I mean, like, the hypocrisy is overwhelming sometimes. Like, I just Europe likes to tout itself as this beacon of human rights, but it's never is, not at all. Especially when it comes to people from Africa or Asia or poorer countries. So I don't know actually what much we can say about it. Can you tell us? You've recently had a new slower, not slower, opposite of slower, faster ship, the Aurora 2. Can you tell us about that? I think it's only a few weeks ago that you launched that, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is like great news, and all of this grim reality that in June we launched our Aurora 2, which is a second faster rescue ship that we have in Lampedusa. And I mean, the background is that, I mean, we all know that there is like ongoing and always new and creative ideas by the Italian authorities to prevent, to obstruct, to somehow stop not just people from arriving, but also civil sea rescue vessels to operate and to rescue people. And so this is basically our answer to that, because also maybe to mention is that since the Meloni cabinet has started, like rescue vessels have been detained more than 40 times. And so as a result, the entire civil fleet has lost more than 1,000 days of operational time, because ships are being detained, and then we are often appealing these detention orders, but then you also have to wait for that, and of course you lose a lot of time in that, but also because there is this far port policy that Italian authorities are nowadays assigning ports, not like before in the past where they just didn't assign ports and prevented the ships from disembarkation, but now they do assign ports, but they are often super far away. For us I think it was in March, we was assigned a port in northern Italy, which was more than 1,000 kilometers away from where we are, and would have been more than 4 or 5 days of additional travel. So of course all of this is taking a lot of time, and it's also reducing the rescue capacities. So this is as a response to that, we decided to get the Aurora 2, and the idea is that if they block the Aurora 1 in port, the Aurora 2 will also be available immediately to carry out rescue missions instead. So even if they are detaining our ship, we have another one straight available with which we can out, and therefore make the Meloni government strategy of limiting our rescue operations basically to fail.
Yeah, that's good. It's good news about the other ship. I mean, it's bad news that it even has to exist, but it's good news that, you can get around the Italian government trying to block the ships all the time. And I wanted to ask one more last thing about, is there a film? I was just looking, you mentioned this the other day, I think, and I saw it on social media. There's a film about the Sea-Watch or the Eventer, I can't remember which one. And can you tell us about it?
Yes, so it's a film about, civil sea rescue in general, but it focuses on the story of the Juventa crew, and it kind of follows the story from founding the organization, going down to Italy for the first rescue missions, with the ship being detained, and then the trial going on, of which you've also been part. And yes, it's quite interesting. It's a Netflix production, so I guess we also have to have these expectations at the back of our head. So it's a production for a mass audience, but in general, I think it's really good that the topic is being put into focus again and is being shown on such a platform, and therefore potentially can reach a lot of people again. And I don't know, also young people. I mean, if we think back in 2016, when all of the sea rescue started, I mean, many of the young people maybe right now, or maybe younger than us, they were much younger back then, and they were not really so involved and maybe didn't really witness all of this. And I think maybe this movie is a good start also to explain the situation to people that are not so involved. But yeah, there is a Netflix movie on the Juventus story and on civil search and rescue coming out. It premieres on the 7th of July. And it has its flaws. It's focusing on the white rescuers and not so much on the people on the move. But at the same time, I think it's a good opportunity that we can work with politically and that we should use to really spread the word again and create attention, and hopefully also manage to reach and get people into action that have not been involved already anyways.
What's it called?
It is called 23,000 Lives, which refers to the approximately 23,000 people that back then the Juventa crew helped to or rescued themselves.
Great, yeah, I think I'll check it out. Is it in? I think it'll be subtitled if it's not in English. I was going to ask if it's in English, but I guess there'll be subtitles.
Yes, definitely. I mean, it's on Netflix, so I think it will probably have subtitles in 10 different languages at least. So yeah, it is in the original language is mostly in German, so you would need subtitles, but yes, they will be there.
Great. Well, I'll look forward to that. And so I was going to ask my last question now, Julia. I don't know, was there anything else you wanted to add about anything we've spoken about today? Or shall I ask you my big, horrible last question?
I think, no, right now, nothing. I think of all of the urgent matters we talked about. So you can go ahead with your last question.
Okay. The last question is, I always ask everyone this, is how are you feeling about the future of all of this? And do you have any optimism about the current situation we're living in?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm not feeling too optimistic about the future, like probably everyone else, because I mean, we can all see the developments, not just in the Mediterranean, but I mean, generally the very, very fast shift to the far right. But at the same time, I mean, I do have optimism and also trust in our solidarity networks and groups. And that's also why I'm still doing what I'm doing, because I'm not super pessimistic and convinced that everything's doomed to fail. Rather the opposite. I just think now it's the moment, more than maybe ever, at least in my relatively young life, that I think we really need to focus on connecting, on organizing, on really taking care of each other even more. And at least in my environment, I can see this happening, and I can see people standing up for each other in the light of all of what's happening right now. So I think, I'm not naive. I don't think everything will change with a happy kumbaya, but I also can see that there are a lot of great people out there doing a lot of stuff, despite, and even more so with all the things becoming worse and worse. And this gives me a lot of hope, it gives me a lot of strength, and I'm also very proud of being part of this network of great people being in solidarity with each other. And I think we just have to really make sure that we keep in connection with each other, that we keep organizing with each other, and that we don't let them make us so negative and pessimistic that we stop acting, because that would be the beginning of the end.
Yeah, that was a great answer, Julia. Thank you very much. All right, well, that was great. Thanks for coming on the Civil Fleet podcast.
Thank you very much for hosting me.
Okay, that was episode 90 of the Civil Fleet podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks again to Julia for coming on the Civil Fleet podcast, and to everyone at Sea-Watch for doing the amazing stuff that they do. Check out the show notes. I'll have links to some of the stuff that we've mentioned here, previous episodes that we talked about in this episode, and news stories about the recent rescues that Sea-Watch has done, and things like that. So also go and check out civilfleet.com, which is our news blog, which is a little bit inactive at the moment due to my life, but maybe I'll start to get a grip on things again, and we'll have more news stories on there. But the blog is civilfleet.com, and you can find some investigative stories on there, also some news reports and some interviews. And if you like what the Civil Fleet is doing and you want to help us to continue to platform the awesome people like Julia we have had on this podcast, then you can do a couple of things. You can share us around on social media. You can tell your friends about us. You can watch us on YouTube. You can give us podcasts. You can give us ratings on podcast apps and things like that. And you can put your money where your mouth is if you like. You can go to ko-fi.com/civilfleet, and you can make a small donation or a monthly donation if you like. And any money that you give there will go directly to keeping this podcast going. The Civil Fleet is totally grassroots, totally independent. And yeah, any help you can give us will be greatly appreciated. All right, hopefully you have another episode soon. Hopefully it won't keep you waiting quite as long for the next one. All right, great. Thanks very much. See you all later. Cheers.